I've known people, and I think a lot of people have, who have found themselves in jail cells with no reason for them to have been there. And that's why I wanted to talk today on the subject of American jurisprudence on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and it is Friday the 26th of November of 2021 today. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. And again, the subject that we're going to talk on today is going to be American jurisprudence, and I'm going to go ahead and go through my notes very quickly to kind of give you some idea where I'm coming from. I've long held the system of jurisprudence in the United States is badly broken. Now, I would argue maybe it's not as badly broken as you might say, but there's definitely some broken pieces to it. It doesn't take a genius to see how. That said, it may well take a very clever individual, maybe a bunch of them, to fix what's obviously wrong. It's long been true that in this country, a person with a good lawyer and sufficient amounts of money can literally get away with murder. It helps to have certain kinds of wisdom and intelligence as well. I heard a story recently, and literally, wow, I've lost my place, and literally got more on it than most will. I'm reading, so like I say, you're going to have to forgive me if I lose my place now and again. And I'm working in a circumstance that I wouldn't normally be working in, and that's fine. I can work with it. From a family member, that's where I got this information, about a man falsely accused and from all appearances wrongly imprisoned for decades. You can be sure he's anything but alone in that reality. He may have been an unsavory character at the time things happened. I can't say. This I know, though. Unsavory doesn't mean culpable. I've known more than a few people who, when you first met them, were not folks you would probably want to invite into your home. The funny reality is, if you got to know some of those people, you learned that initial feeling you had about who they seemed to be was actually badly wrong. It was actually really mistaken. I've known others who seemed like really nice folks who, had they gotten access to anything you owned, would probably have had it up for sale faster than you could blink an eye, right? Believe it or not, that kind of thing matters in a court of law. I'm going to say it again. I may not know how to fix things. I may not know how to fix things where American jurisprudence is concerned. But it's pretty obvious it's broken, right? Am I by any means saying everybody in jail doesn't belong there? No, not at all. Not at all. What I'm trying to get at is this. If you incarcerate or otherwise punish just one innocent, that's one too many. I get that mistakes are made. That's going to happen. In my opinion, they're made far too often, though, and that really needs to be rectified. Imagine yourself, and maybe you don't have to, maybe you've been there, languishing in a cell, having done nothing sufficient to put you there. I'm sure that's not any happier a thought for you than for me. I started out the notes for this piece with a simple thought. Best lawyer, worst opponent, best outcome. The same obviously works in reverse. That is to say, worst lawyer, best opponent, worst outcome. Am I one of those people saying we need to burn the system down? Far from it. Even so, there are things we must fix. We can and must do better. How do we accomplish that? I'll leave that to men who know the law and the system better than do I. Okay, now I'm done with my notes. I'm going to say this again. I'm in a little bit of an odd circumstance because I'm visiting with family. I managed to snag a little time and a place where I could record a video. You're used to seeing me certain ways. You're not going to see me those ways today, and that's just how that works. That being said, here I am. So let me go ahead and get on with the subject at hand. There have been too many instances where people who are obviously at least very likely guilty of something that they should not have done, got away with it. Some of them never went to trial, much less did they actually come into a circumstance or a situation where they were, incarcerated as a result of having done wrong. They didn't even come close to that, and they never got anywhere close to it. And this is the thing you need to understand, right? You need to be aware that there are people out there who could be considered part of privileged class. And one example of that is right now we've got particularly legislators and somewhat people in the executive branch of the government, and a little bit somewhat in the jurist section of the government, that is lawyers and justices and judges and so forth, who can get away with horribly criminal things and never once have to worry about anybody taking them to task for them. Or if somebody says something about that, people going, yeah, but we're just going to let that go. And this is wrong. This is horribly wrong. But the reality is this. I'm going to say it again. You have a good lawyer? Well, the chances are pretty good you're going to get away with something if you did something wrong. Now, if you have a good lawyer and you didn't do anything wrong in the first place, that's not really much of a problem, is it? But if you have a good lawyer and you're crooked as a dog's hind leg, as they used to say, and you get off, you still got off, and you acted in criminal ways when you did so. And that's just the reality of that. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to get across today. We need to find some way to make it so that the system stops letting innocent people off and puts wrongdoers in positions of peril. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen at all. I think probably 85 or 90% of the time that is how things work. But there's that other 15 or 10% of the time where people who are not guilty get incarcerated or get some sort of punitive action against them, and people who are guilty end up on the street and do it again. Literally, we've got a guy right now being accused of plowing through a crowd, and this guy had already multiple times been accounted as somebody who did things wrong, and the system basically let him slip through the cracks not once, but multiple times. We cannot have that. It is not appropriate. We can't do it. I know that it can be hard to make sure that you're doing right. And I know, again, that when you look at the people who are being trashed out as a result of the fact that they did nothing wrong and that somebody else was actually guilty of some sort of wrongdoing, that's a problem as well, and we need to deal with that. Now, again, I'm not one of those people who's going to tell you, well, burn the whole system down. I am always a person who will work from a measured approach. I know sometimes it's just not going to work. I get it. It's just not going to work sometimes. Sometimes you're going to have people who are going to do things wrong and they're not going to get caught. And sometimes you're going to have people who don't do things wrong and are going to be incarcerated. And you may never completely get rid of that. But I still say at this point that the number of times that sort of thing happens, is far too high. Far too high, and there's no reason that we should be expecting that or accepting it as proper or appropriate. And by the way, I see a problem with the idea that when we put somebody in jail for something and then people reverse their course and say, well, actually, that person didn't do that. I see people right now who are willing to keep that person in jail instead of letting them out. It's already going to be hard enough for that person to redeem their situation just based on the fact that when it comes right down to it, that individual has a criminal record or has spent X amount of time in prison. And even if they're innocent, even if they didn't do anything wrong, they're still going to have a hard time getting people to believe that they're not a bad person. That's just the reality. So this is what I wanted to say today. We need to figure out ways not to totally reform necessarily, but to generally make sure that the system of American jurisprudence is working as it was intended and expected to work. That's what I wanted to say today, and that's what I'm going to leave you with. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up now because I'm over my time. This is the Daily Summation for Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Friday, the 26th of November, 2021. That means tomorrow, today will be that beginning of the Sabbath at sundown, and tomorrow will be Saturday, the 27th, and it will be the remainder of the Sabbath until sundown on that day. So for those of you who are observing the Sabbath, hope you're having you have a good Sabbath. For everybody else, hope your time is going good today. Again, tomorrow will be Saturday, the 27th of November, 2021. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Thank you for coming along and visiting with me today. The subject for today has been American jurisprudence, and tomorrow we're going to talk about why not anarchy, and that's a question. I don't have a question mark in my notes, but that's life. The thing is, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. We're going to get into and cover that tomorrow if I'm able to do so, and I think I should be able to do so. I think I found a nice little nook where I can do this particular thing for this short amount of time that I take. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on what I hope is Saturday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Friday, the 26th of November of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.